knows a lot about the science stuff. Professor Dave explains.
We have tackled the big question of the origin of life on Earth and its evolution over in the biology series. But how does this relate to ecology? For starters, the origin of life implies the simplest, most ancient organism arising from non-living matter, and then subsequently evolving very gradually over millions of years into more complex organisms. These then formed populations, communities, ecosystems, and then eventually the entire biosphere, thus the ecology connection. So just what is evolution in this ecological context? We can think of evolution as the change in heritable traits, those traits that are transmissible from parent to offspring of biological populations over many generations. The process of evolution gives rise to diversity at every level of biological organization. While studies in evolution consider the processes by which modern organisms have developed from ancestral ones, the field of ecology explores the interactive web of organisms and the environment. Organisms evolve because they are in ecological relationships with other organisms of their environment, and because the environment itself influences their evolution via natural selection. So even though we may think of evolution as all the changes that took place over millions of years, the truth is that evolution is at work all the time. Sometimes the changes are small and appear insignificant at first glance, but they all play a part in natural selection and the survival of the species. Speaking of natural selection, this is one of the many mechanisms of evolution. In most cases, it doesn't lead to the development of a new species. It simply allows a species to better adapt to its environment by changing the genetic makeup from one generation to the next. The organisms better adapted to their environment tend to survive and produce more offspring, and this plays a role in the evolution of beneficial features. If a species lacks a certain trait that will allow it to survive, the species either dies out or eventually develops the missing trait. A modern example of this is insects and our use of pesticides. The more a pesticide is used, the greater the chance that the insects targeted will develop immunity to the chemical. Resistance can happen as quickly as a single generation. Since many insects reproduce quickly, several generations can be born within weeks and months, and by the time a few generations have passed, all insects are likely to be resistant to the pesticide. Here's another strange example. There are bacteria out there called Pseudomonas that have evolved the ability to eat nylon. When placed in an environment where only nylon was available as food, the bacteria evolved until it was able to eat it. This demonstrates that even the most basic of life forms can adapt to the food an environment provides. Another mechanism of evolution is mutation, or a change in the DNA sequence of an organism. This can result due to errors in DNA replication during cell division, exposure to mutagens, or high-energy radiation. Mutations generally fall into two types: point mutations, which changes a single nucleotide, and chromosomal, or mutations that change chromosome structure. Mutations can have a range of effects as well. Often they can be harmful. Others have little or no detrimental effect. And sometimes, although very rarely, the change in DNA sequence may even turn out to be beneficial to an organism. More significant changes to organisms require events like gene duplication or even chromosome duplication, followed by subsequent diversion from the original copy through mutation, thus producing brand new proteins. This can also be achieved through de novo genes, where a promoter migrates to a previously non-protein coding section, thereby generating an entirely new gene. If these genes are involved with embryonic development, we can see totally new body plans rapidly emerge. But this is more complex evolutionary biology that is outside of the scope of this series. Now we arrive at mechanisms pertaining less to biochemistry and more to ecology. The first is gene flow, also called gene migration. This is any movement of individuals and the genetic material they carry from one population to another, changing the composition of the gene pool of the receiving population. Migrants can change the distribution of genetic diversity by modifying allele frequencies, or the proportion of the members carrying a particular variant of a gene. This leads us to another mechanism of evolution, genetic drift, which can lead to large changes in populations over a short period of time, though it is a random process, not caused by environmental factors. In this case, allele frequencies of a population change over generations due to chance, also called sampling error. Essentially, an allele randomly starts to become more or less common in a population. When people who have the gene causing a specific genetic trait, like freckles, reproduce with people who do not have the gene either can become more popular, such that nearly everyone gets freckles, or totally disappear from the population, such that no one has freckles. While drift occurs in all populations, its effects are strongest in the smallest populations. In natural populations, all these mechanisms of evolution do not act in isolation, but rather in tandem at all times. Finally, let's examine adaptations. In biology and ecology, adaptation refers to adjusting behavior, physiology, or structure to become more suited for an environment. We covered these specifics in an earlier tutorial, but it's important to bring them up again, as understanding adaptations helps us understand how some organisms can live in specific habitats. Mimicry, for example, is not just humans imitating someone else in order to entertain. In biology, the close external resemblance of an animal, plant, or part of one to another, as well as producing the same undesirable smells, sounds, or behaviors as other creatures, can save the life of the imitator. We can see insects that strongly resemble sticks, and other such organisms which clearly benefit from this ability. Toxin production is another adaptation critical to some plants, and these compounds act as a natural defense mechanism against predators like insects or bacteria, as well as parasites and viruses. These can be naturally occurring phytochemicals or metabolites formed by plants themselves to protect against various threats. Amongst vertebrates, another adaptation is echolocation, or a system of orientation involving the use of echoes or sounds produced by animals for gathering information about its environment. This is performed in order to find roosts or homes, food, or both, irrespective of light conditions. There are many more examples we could discuss, but an in-depth survey of the entire animal kingdom in all of its incredible diversity can be found over in the Zoology series. So if you want to learn more about animals, head over there. For now, let's continue to learn about ecology.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Support me on Patreon so I can keep making content. And as always, feel free to email me, ProfessorDaveExplains@gmail.com.